Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Redistricting Committee of Thursday, October 7th, 2021 at 3:03 p.m. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Randy Udell.
Present.
Susie Gennon.
Present.
Greg Jones.
Present.
Huma Hassan.
Present.
Bill Kanzimas.
Present.
Jean Musser.
Present.
And Wendy Hathaway is absent with excuse. In the room, we also have Mayor Aaron Richardson, our Community Development Planner Wade Thompson, City Administrator Chad Brecklin, and myself, Tracy Oldenburg, City Clerk. You have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. Next item, public appearances, input from public. We do not have anybody in chambers nor on Zoom. Moving on, item 4, review ward and aldermanic district map options 1 and 1A. Wade, will you take this one? Microphone.
Familiar with option 1, we talked about it quite a bit yesterday. So there was direction from the committee to make some tweaks to option 1. We're calling that option 1A. And I'll just run through kind of some big picture things, and then we can talk in more detail about the changes. So big picture, per the directed changes from this committee, as we mentioned, making those tweaks will affect our population distribution in the districts. So you see that reflected in districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. There is quite a bit more variability between our largest ward and our smallest ward than we saw in the previous option 1. So right now, District 2 is almost 8,100. That's our biggest district. And then our smallest district is District 4 at about 7,500. So I do want to point out, I did some quick math on this. Our population, our range of equal population distribution is 8%. So there is quite a bit of range. Option 1 had a range of 1%. And basically that range is calculated by taking the difference between the largest district and the smallest district and dividing by our ideal population of 7,750. So again, option 1A has an 8% population, a range of population from that ideal. So this is the ward map. I think I'll probably just jump right to the alder map and talk maybe about some changes there. Certainly we can come back to the ward map. And my ward map isn't moving. Why is that happening? Oh, that's interesting. It looks like my graphics aren't coming through. Bear with me. Okay, yeah, I think I should have it as a Word doc here. Okay. So, and I'll just kind of quickly highlight the changes made from option 1 to option 1A. I wasn't able to highlight them, but I think hopefully stuff is fresh in people's minds. So districts, or wards 5 and 6, which is basically the boundary between District 1 and District 2, that was moved east. District 1 was moved east just a touch to kind of reflect what our 2010 ward boundary was between 5 and 6, so that's this area here. Second change was working on this Osmondson area in District 7 and 8, or excuse me, District 2, Ward 7, District 4, Ward 19. And I did confirm with our clerk. This does match the 2010 boundary, as well as we'll keep things simple for school district issues. And then if people remember in 7 and 8, there was kind of some irregular boundaries. So we took Ward 7 and 8 in District 2 down to, I guess it'd be Lacey Road to kind of square things off there. We did also there was a little blip here that was initially in option 1 shown as District 3. This is by McKee Farms Park. So this little area was added back into District 2. So now the break between District 2 and District 3 is North Fish Hatch in that area. And then I believe the final change was down here. I believe this was initially, and Ward 15, District 4, and option 1 to try to keep that neighborhood whole. We put it back into District 3. I do want to point out that if we would have added this back into District 3, there was some discussion on that. We would have been outside that range that we need to be within, and it really would have thrown things off in terms of just kind of ward boundaries and those sorts of things. So, and then just demographic-wise, you know, I haven't had a chance to really analyze the numbers, but I think things do look pretty similar to option 1. Obviously, there's a few shuffling of folks here and there, but I think the overall demographic picture probably is pretty consistent with what option 1 is put forth. So with that, I can certainly take any questions or comments that the committee might have.
I do have one, just because of, well, I have a question I'd like to circle back to. The change we made with 14 and 15, those particular wards, only because overall, District 4, there's a significant difference between 1, 2, and 3 as far as the numbers.
Yeah.
Is the portion that we pulled back into 14, which would be District 3, Ward 14, from Ward 15, is that section, I'm assuming, is on the east side of a park, and then but the neighborhood we were trying to keep it within goes further west, correct?
Are you talking about this area here, Randy?
I can see. Yes. I mean, it doesn't break down any smaller than that. I'm just curious as to how many residents live in that particular neighborhood.
You mean the area to the east? Is that?
Yeah, the area.
Yeah, so that's a fairly large census block. That's about 521 people.
Oh, okay, so either way. I mean,
Yeah, so that really kind of,
I mean, either way, if we pull it out,
Yep.
add it to District 4, it's going to bump District 4 up, but then it's really going to make a deficit in
right.
District 3. So I don't know if there's really any options to try and find a small number. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's a desire to move back to a lesser range of population distribution, it would be bringing back some of those tweaks we made, and, you know.
Yeah, no. I'm was just looking for a simple
Right.
remedy, and I don't think that exists. I think we scrutinized it quite well yesterday. I'll turn it over to the committee as far as questions. Aaron, go ahead.
Just one comment. It looks like actually District 3 and 4 are both pretty similar and smaller than 1 and 2. I'm actually okay with 3 and 4 being smaller because that's where the majority of our growth of the city is coming.
True.
How about Terabessa, Fahey Fields, those types of neighborhoods? I don't know what it's called yet. The Payne and Dolan is doing at Fitchburg and Lacey. There's a lot of development happening in those two districts, so I have no doubt in 10 years that gap is going to probably be eliminated and actually go the other way. So that's where I think if we're within that 10%, which we are, I don't have a concern with those two districts being the ones that are a little smaller.
No, and I looked at that as well, and I'm in full agreement with you. I just realized that we were told not to look at future growth, that's all. So, yeah. Yes, Huma.
I have a question. Wade, you talked about the deviation in all of these districts being around 8%. You know, previously with the other option 1, it was less.
Yep.
Is that something, I mean, you mentioned that, is that something that's something that we need to be concerned about, or is there?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the core that.
Because the magic number was 7,750, right,
Yep.
per district.
I think at the core that's probably a legal question. What I can
Yeah.
share with you is some information that I think simplifies things and might help the committee make decisions. So yeah, this is just kind of an example of how you get to this range. So basically, it's the difference between largest district and smallest district divided by ideal population, and that gives you a percentage. Now, and again, this was put together by, I believe, state agencies regarding general practice of redistricting. So this comes from them, and I'll let you read it, but basically it's saying that an overall range of less than 10% is generally regarded as complying with the principle of one person, one vote, which is the core of what we're doing here. Similarly, Just some comment, this might be a ruling, U.S. Supreme Court. I guess just summarizing the last sentence there. When the maximum population deviation between the largest and smallest district is less than 10%, a state or local legislative map presumptively complies with the one person, one vote rule. Similarly, again, just more information on, I guess, case law related to, this issue. That being said, I do want to point out that no level of population inequality is deemed too small for a judicial challenge. That was a case law as well. So again, just various examples of probably various legal interpretations of the one person, one vote law. And I think that's probably as much details I can give you on kind of those parameters, so.
I have another question, if that's all right. In the previous option 1, what was the deviation for that from yesterday?
Yeah, that was less than 1%. Oh. Yeah, those are real close. And again, that was my goal initially, understanding that we'd probably get larger than that as we started talking about moving the puzzle pieces. So, but yeah, it was about less than 1%.
Additional questions? Gene, you have the floor.
Do these lines result in any alder current alder residing outside of that alder's current district?
No.
So it wouldn't be a problem. Right?
Okay. Yes, Chad, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
Oh,
Oh, Greg.
For Wade, thank you for the data. Thank you for the update.
Sure.
On the data. And I'm gonna just pick on a couple of items here. I'm looking at from option 1A, the data on the second page having to do with the changes we made for Ward 7 and 8, how we move people or voters or residents around. It looks to me like there was a very slight increase, non-significant as far as constitutional principles are required, the one person, one vote. But those increases in 7, and I'm looking at African Americans, Hispanics, were very, very insignificant. Although the overall ward increase for 8 is about 300, very insignificant to the total. And the increase for 7, by moving those lines and people, was about 111. So when you think about that in light of what you just said, what you just showed on the screen there, you think that comports, I think it does, with the principles and standards?
I do.
Okay,
Yep.
At that level, the racial ethnic level, not the broader level.
Yep.
All right. And then we tweaked 18, we moved some people out of Ward 18 to make it contiguous. Remember, I hope I'm saying that right. And that was a very slight reduction in the number of residents in 18, which really doesn't affect its overall relationship to the other wards in District 3.
Correct. Yep.
4, I mean. Okay. So you're comfortable, I'm coming to the question. So given what we did to tweak and change and move the numbers, do you feel comfortable that we have not only not violated the principles, guidelines that we are told by the state and feds in terms of those general statements, but at the local city level? Fitchburg is a city that's growing, and it's going to continue growing because it's very attractive. Yep. So, and not looking at the future, yep, looking at next year. So once we put this in place, do you feel comfortable that we have met general standards of the?
I feel comfortable meeting standards as proposed in various informational resources that I've read. Certainly, this is a legal issue, and I'm not prepared to state anything legally, but I think this is a solid plan that, to the best of my ability, has followed what I understand to be the legal requirements.
All right.
Chad, I believe you had a question?
I did. This question is for you, Wade. I'm just curious if you have any potential thoughts on that little piece of neighborhood that we did include in Ward 14, if there is any way to kind of make adjustments there based on, what you've seen in the map through the census tract boundaries and so forth, that would kind of keep that, either all of 14, kind of expanding 14 without significantly throwing the population numbers off. I know you said if we went all the way to Scion Road, you were talking, I think, about 500 people. Is there any sort of boundary through the census tracts available between Scion Road and where you have it now back to the west there?
No, so what you see on the map, I believe are literally the census block lines. So that, yeah, there's no opportunity, you'd have to either bring that whole block in or keep it out. There's no way to divvy that thing up.
Okay. So do you have any suggestions on that particular area? I mean, I guess as I look at it on the map, and I know we need to be very cognizant about development, but we literally have 450 houses, dwelling units, that have been submitted for the Plan Commission this month that are just to the south of that little area.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think, because it's at least as far along in the process already, granted a lot of things can happen, and I want to be very delicate on how we approach these potential developments, but I guess I just feel like there's a potential for maybe some concerns. I don't know, Tracy, if there's anything from your perspective from a voting, polling location and those sorts of things, when you basically put 450 units over the next, 7 years to the south of that little jut out, if that's going to create any sort of polling considerations.
Yeah, I guess just broadly speaking, without spending hours analyzing it, I don't see an easy solution. I think certainly we've explored a lot of options, and I just don't, without, I don't want to say starting over, but I think if we were trying to get that area into 14, you would see some real shifting of other district boundaries. Certainly, that could be an option, but I just don't see a way to bring it in now and leave option 1A substantially as is. And again, I think that's the core of the issue. I think it's, it's equal population distribution versus really, really clean lines.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And if I'm reading the data correctly, it's 1,309 people are residing in Ward 14 currently, correct?
1,300.
As you have it drawn?
In option 1A?
Yes, in 1A.
1,309, yep.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of this conversation, but there are, I think I mentioned this yesterday, there's a lot of neighborhoods that are just to the right of the group 14 that aren't on this map. And that's, I think, maybe where it's kind of confusing. It doesn't look like there's a lot there, but there's actually a lot of houses there. You have Waterford Grill Inn, you've got the Crossing, you've got McGaw Road and Dahmer's Drive as well. So there's a bunch of houses that are actually along Lacey Road, on the south side of Lacey Road, that aren't showing up on this map right here. So that's where, the further you go east, you're actually picking up a lot of houses.
And I do want to point out.
You can see that if you look at the original ward map, you can see how 14 extends and how there's different streets and subdivisions that are listed on that map.
And I do want to point out a typo. I think on the ward map, it says District 3 is population of 7747. It should be 7447. So that is so basically, yeah, 7447 for a District 3 population.
So 300 less.
Correct. District 3 on the ward map says 7747 as a population. It should be 7447. No, actually, so this, the table's right, but here it says. Oh, I see. Yeah, exactly, yep. I guess if someone's got a calculator, quick math, I mean, if we, I think I already did the math, but just to confirm, you know, if, I believe there's 521 people in this area, if that gets subtracted from District 4, does anyone have a number for that? Can they do that, a quick calculation? Okay, so then we would take the difference between District 2 and District 4, which is about 1,100, right? So if someone wants to do 1,100 divided by 7,750, in terms of what percentage that would be? Approximately. What's the percentage? 1,100 divided by 7,750.
That percentage is 14.19%.
So that's above 10%. So just, again, not to say that's the only option, but just to show you, you know, kind of how that would play out. Yeah, and obviously District 2 is the heavy district, you know, that's where a lot of the largest population is. And again, if you think about what we did yesterday, you know, we added, and that makes sense, we added areas in 7 and 8, and then we also added that little Mickelson Parkway, so that's kind of what pushed. And then we also, I guess we did subtract north of McKee, but overall, District 2 did gain.
Mm-hmm. You may go, you have the floor.
I have a question. So yesterday, we talked a little bit about what the districts were right at this moment. I think District 3, currently, with the current map from 2010, we have 2 districts that are over 50% communities of color. District 1 is 52, and District 3 was 50. Now, with this proposed option 1A, we're looking at District 1 retaining about 56, but we're splitting District 3 from 50%, from what it was, to now District 2 has 43%, and District 3, as we've drawn it, has 33%. So I guess I'm just wondering, maybe if I could get anyone's thoughts on this. Is this something that we should be concerned about, that previously we had 2 alderman districts that were majority communities of color, population-wise, and now we have, with this one that we're proposing, is 1 community of color, and then District 2 and District 3, we've split the 50% and increased District 2 to 43% and about District 3 to about 33%. Is that something that we should be concerned about? I'd like to hear anybody's thoughts on that.
If it's just a question, I guess for me, that wouldn't be relevant to the legal parameters of redistricting, and this is why. Not that it's a good issue, good analysis, and so forth, but here's the issue for me. If the standards are that we need to maintain, there's nothing saying that we have to maintain districts of color as minority, majority focused. What is important to me, as I understand the redistricting process, is that we do not displace and divide representative neighborhoods and wards so that their vote is diluted. My issue is, if I understand it, that we're really not diluting the vote. We're basically saying, here's an option, bear with me, you all, for people running for office to put forth an agenda that might be more palatable to communities of color and then garner their vote. So I guess from the question of whether or not we should be concerned, I think is a good observation, very good, strong analysis, but I don't know if it's going to mean that we need to really try to uphold the profile we had in 10 versus 20 for those districts.
I think I
Go
have
ahead.
mild concern. I think it's suboptimal that we would have taken out 2 majorities and turned them into 1. But District 2 clearly is a minority influence district, and it has 45% or some minorities. And so that, I think, sort of equalizes the whole thing to the point where it's reasonable and acceptable to do it this way, in my view.
Okay. You,
I'm not exactly sure. I think my. So I think, I mean, I guess, could we maybe get a general feeling from the committee if you feel that the way these districts have been, way the demographic percentages line up, are you as representative of our community comfortable with that? That I know a couple of you have mentioned that you do feel some comfort level there, but I think ultimately it's important to kind of feel out the group as a whole, at least from I think the perspective moving forward on what the council will consider.
Gene, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the 8% is a suboptimal number, but I think it's acceptable given that it was done for specific reasons of keeping neighborhoods together. It was not done for the purpose of altering racial makeup itself, which would make it more challengeable. Not a lawyer either, but from what I read in the booklets that are put out by the state, it's reasonable to get up to that number if you have legitimate purposes for doing so, which it sounds to me like we have. So I think that for purposes of compact districts and reasonable population distribution and acknowledging the importance of racial minorities in the city, that this is a reasonable way to accomplish those things. So for me, it's fine with me.
Additional comments?
Yeah, I agree with what Jean, said, is that I think we've done, or Wade has done, well, we all have, thorough, looking through to be fair and equitable in all that we're doing. And so I think, we are within constraints of either which approach do you want to go. And I know that we're not intended to look at how the city is going to continue to grow, but there are some positive impacts that we know are going to be happening. And we've seen the trend over the last 10 years of how it's grown. So we can at least anticipate there is going to be growth within the next 10 years, and things will begin to, I think, also equalize themselves out as we move forward. So I think, what we've done with 1A has been, I think, is a great option.
Very good. Anyone else like to comment? Thoughts, Chad? Additional thoughts? I guess share.
Yeah, if you were a council member, are you comfortable with how Ward 14 looks?
That's a question for the entire.
Yeah, that is a question for the entire body. Just kind of, I think there's been a lot of really good work and a lot of really good discussion and thought from the group on creating this particular map, and I'm just kind of curious how you feel about Ward 14.
Gene?
Well, I think if I were an alder in District 1, I would note a big change in the demographic of that district and the neighborhoods that are involved in it. So I think an alder in District 1 would be saying, well, now what? And the same in District 2, because District 2 has picked up 9 and 10. So their aldermanic districts have changed a lot in their makeup. 3, that's sort of a similar groups of people, I guess. There's a lot of apartments out there, and assuming the alders live in the district, I would guess that's not a giant deal. That person's going to pick up town of Madison, and that would be a big change for that district, but, so everybody changes. And Randy can just rest comfortably that he has his large horseshoe, and it looks like it always looked.
And if I could just make a point, Gene,
Sure.
to the point about District 3 picking up town of Madison, District 3 also previously had a majority of North Fishhatchery Road. So there's some similar, they're giving some of that up, but they're getting a similar population with town of Madison, so yep.
Further comments, Huma?
I don't have any other comments. I just, I think we've done a really good job. I'd like to thank all the staff, I think Wade and Chad and everyone who's, I think you got this less than 30 days ago, I think, right? Is that correct? Less than 30, you got the numbers less
Yeah,
than 30 days
and the work started
ago.
about 9 days ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and to put this together, I think I'm just trying to think of a better way, or if there's anything. I like the option A. I don't have anything against it. I guess I'm just pondering the issue of the reduction in the previous District 3 from, 50% to now we have two districts that are District 2 and District 3 that are less than 50% communities of color. And then I'm also thinking about, well, District 3 and District 4, it seems like there's a lot of growth that's going to happen in that, fairly quick, from what I've seen around town. I'm not on the board or the city or have any kind of special knowledge, but just driving around Fitchburg, it seems that District 3 is, there could be some things that happen there that could increase population there. So overall, I am pretty happy with it. I guess the other things that I would really like to consider in this proposal, and I don't know if we would need an amendment, it would be something like if we could also recommend to the city council, besides if we're going to recommend this option 1A, is to recommend, I'd like to see more education or information sessions, I guess, to the public about, how this was done, redistricting, particularly after the city council makes their final vote. Maybe two possible information sessions. I guess they could be online or whatever, so that people can kind of understand what this process was. I know they see it on TV, but, maybe they have questions or of some sort, so they can, feel more comfortable about it, I think that's the only other comments I really have on this.
Anyone from city staff that would like to comment on that comment as far as informational meetings?
I have to admit, Tracy and I were conversing a bit during the first portion of your commentary, so I didn't quite capture it all, so my apologies. But basically, if I'm understanding things correctly, you're thinking similar to what Greg had suggested on Monday, that after the maps are ultimately approved by the council, of doing some additional outreach and information. Yeah, I think that's something we can certainly consider, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wade, I'm going to try to avoid any other requests on the fly here other than this one. What does Micah Road look like for a boundary on the map? And here's what I'm potentially thinking. Is Micah Road to the west? So for folks looking at the map, basically where you see the 4 on the map, that road that's running straight up from the 4, I can go point it out.
Sure.
So Wade's got his cursor on this road. This is Micah Road, and what I'm curious about, Wade, is if the the boundaries align in such a way that Micah Road to the west could become part of District 4, and Micah Road east to Cyene Road would become part of District 3, how that might align.
And if people have I mean, if we want to try to do a quick calculation, I can give some numbers to people, and is that what we want to do, or?
Just tell me, Chair, why would we want to do that? What are we trying to accomplish with this tweak?
My question as well, yeah.
So what I was trying to accomplish is trying to avoid this little jut out here. I know we talked about that yesterday, and if the commission is fine with it, I'm certainly fine with it as well. I'm just thinking this through about how this is going to, we've got a plan that's been submitted to the Plan Commission for this month for additional housing units right here. And then that would, potentially set this area up as its own ward, obviously, and then this area, this neighborhood has its own ward as well. Just one other kind of 1B, but again, if the commission does not want to consider that, if they don't feel like this is any much of an issue that they'd like to proceed with this, I completely understand.
So-
I have a question. Would that be taking, you said there's about 500?
521, I believe.
500, is that 521 from District 2 going to District 3? Is that right? No, District 3 going to District 4. Oh, okay, so,
It'd be,
No.
this big block here
uh-huh,
is 521.
okay.
So if I'm following Chad, he's saying that
Yeah.
521 would go into 3.
Oh, okay.
Is that right, Chad?
Yep. Push them into, this would be a District 3, part of the green.
Yes.
And then this part from here over, which I'm not sure what the population is in here, would become blue and part of District 4.
You're saying kind of
Oh, okay, you're talking about a switch.
like
yeah.
this
Swap.
here?
Yeah, basically right here, yep, this
Okay.
from Micah
Quarry
Road
Hill.
to the west.
Quarry Ridge, I think it is,
Quarry- yeah,
Quarry Hill.
yeah, Quarry Hill.
Hill would be going to
So
18.
what's the difference in those two switch outs?
So again, I can give people numbers if someone wants to calculate on the fly. My software doesn't calculate, but I can give numbers, and then,
Go ahead, shoot.
Are you looking at equalizing the numbers? Is that what the shift would?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what the numbers look like from a population standpoint.
Okay.
And if they don't align, then it doesn't make much sense to
Sure.
consider that any further. But if the population change was similar enough that the commission felt like they might want to take a look at that option,
into
we
District
certainly could consider it.
3.
But
And again,
District-
the whole premise is just to kind of clean this up just
Clean it up.
a bit more.
But District 4 would be losing 521, if I heard you right, in population, right?
But they might be gaining.
Yep. but
3 would be gaining,
They'd be gaining this over here, though.
Micah Road,
right, which we don't, what are those numbers?
so
He's got them up right here. These are
2,
your numbers right there.
2, just the 1,
It's too small for
80.
my eyes.
2, 40,
And then the other thing that you need to think about is that if you take,
208,
if you take about 500,
44,
the difference is more than 500. You're looking at
3,
a district with less, about
92,
6,000 people in the district. 6,000, like on the, 6,000 close to 7,000,
77.
like on the edge of that,
For the
63.
for
total.
the variation. But let's see what the numbers are.
And we might have to think about, too, I don't know what that ward population is. Let's see here. So 14. Yeah, I guess we'll see, but, so right now, ward, oh, no, that should work. That would work from a ward perspective. 15. Ah, shoot.
Wait, and as I said, this is the only thing I'll ask you to do on the fly.
No, it's all, it's okay. So it looks like, just on some rough math, let me just make sure we got this figured out here. All right, so 521, right? And then, so again, so this area would go into District 3, right? This big block?
Plus this here.
This here, right? Plus what?
I was thinking using Micah Road here.
That would go into District 4?
Yeah, so.
Right, so this becomes green, right?
Yep, this stays green from here.
Let me just, actually, I can draw that, hold on one sec. Like that?
No school boundaries need to worry about.
Yep, and then can you make?
The corner too, though, I think.
Well, then then we're really gonna probably skew things, but we can try that.
Oh, that didn't include the
So you
apartment
want-
complex.
Wanna try that?
Well, you actually, you might need it though, because.
Okay, let's just do this, just for now, I'm just gonna do that. And then he said everything west of Micah and north of Nobel to District 4?
Yeah,
Okay,
if you wouldn't mind.
so. Oh. Micah's right there, right?
Yep, that one, right here. This is Micah.
Is that the shape we want?
Are you able to go, does it allow us to go straight south or no?
So let me just double, is that what we want for now?
Yeah, we can try that.
Let me see if that,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so that creates a Ward 14 that's under 600. So we need two more, which we could, so now I have to go to 13. So now 13's too big. Just bear with me, I'm gonna have to. All right, so 14. Again, there will be a ripple effect, as you can see. So then we'll have to do that. So now I've still got. So 14.
Before you did this last block, once you included the crossing, it was like 789 to 741.
Okay,
So they were pretty close.
But now I gotta
before
get
you
my-
did this, but once you added this, that screwed it up.
this one?
I'm just curious if the,
Yeah.
the end game though, the numbers.
Did we change that one?
You just put it into 4.
District 4? I thought it was this piece, wasn't it?
Because it was 3. And you just cut it off.
Okay, so what do you want me to do?
So if this went back to 3,
This?
yep,
We didn't change that, did we? I thought we changed this.
we changed that, but Chad just, oh wait, okay, now,
Because I think,
oh,
that's this piece, right? Which is,
you didn't give me 167 as a number.
yeah, he just added that one, but so I guess that would be,
So if you didn't add it in though,
it'd be better?
yeah.
Okay, so hold on, let me. Okay, so now it's back in 13. Oh, I gotta get, 13's way too big. 14's gotta grow.
Wade, one consideration that we were just looking at up here is that this does become problematic with the school district boundary.
Okay,
The school district boundary actually is Micah, but the difference is that the school district boundary is not the center line of Micah Road. It's the property lines to the east of the houses on the east side of the road.
okay.
So that, I think, becomes problematic for trying to draw the ward map that way, correct?
Yeah, I would think so, yep.
Okay. Yes, and that's again a ballot style consideration, that we would be adding ballot styles.
And I just realized I'm working off the master copy, which I don't want to screw up too much, so just, if we do want to continue this, it'll take me some time off to create a new map option. So just bear with me if you want to.
I think before you do that, Wade, I'll just ask the committee if they even want you to further explore that. I think if nothing else, it was perhaps a good exercise for all of us to kind of see what happens when we start moving boundaries around and what that ripple effect really is. You know, it seems simple for a person like me who's sitting here and hasn't had the extensive time you've spent on this this mapping application and talking about that ripple effect, and then to actually see it in person has been pretty helpful. So I do apologize for putting you on the spot, but I do appreciate that. I think that this had value, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'll defer to the committee on whether or not they want to continue any alterations to option 1A.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I have no problem doing any of this, and I'm, you know, certainly whatever the committee would like to explore, I'm happy to do that, so.
If I may, I know Wade just had kind of given me some numbers on the Quarry Hill neighborhood, and that was about 741 people. And if you added those other pieces that we talked about along Lacey Road, that was about 789. So it was pretty close, actually, if you don't add that one piece below the 14 on your 1A map, I guess. If you don't add this little piece right here, then they're close. Yeah, that 167 would throw it off.
Gene, you have the floor.
I have a question also. This is a whole different issue, however, and maybe non-issue, but so in calculating the population of District 3, you've added in the town of Madison to come up with the 7447, right? So this is the statute about how you're supposed to do this says that all territory contained within the municipality and only the territory so contained on April 1st of the year of the federal decennial census shall be contained within a ward. So I'm not a lawyer, you're not a lawyer, but.
So you're talking about how we come up with that equal population?
Yeah,
Yep,
my
so-
question is, would the real population be 6,000, or is the population you can count as District 3 being the 7447?
Yep, so we did,
Under
before we began any of this mapping work, our legal, city attorney, city clerk, administrator, and I discussed just that issue. And I think, and Tracy, you can chime in, but Tracy did confirm with, I forget the name of the organization, but the idea that we could account for the annexation population when we work towards equal population distribution. Similarly, our city attorney felt comfortable with proceeding in this manner. So that's pretty much all I can offer you in that regard.
Thanks. And it says, and only, you know, it's kind of a strongly word. That's fine. That's quite satisfactory.
Well, Gene, if I may, if you could refresh my memory, did you say all ward boundaries? Is that the statutory language versus aldermanic district language?
Within a ward, it says, under the division or ordinance resolution.
Okay, so we obviously cannot consider ward boundaries that are outside of our jurisdiction, with the exception of, and I was looking through the emails here, Tracy, that you had shared. I'm trying to dig it up here that confirmed that we were good with including the town of Madison into this planning. But I think that the ward boundaries are probably a significant distinction from the legal standpoint versus aldermanic district boundaries. But I'm not a lawyer, and I certainly don't want to inject my legal interpretation where it doesn't belong.
I'd say if the city attorney said it's okay, it sounds like it's okay, or at least you have a good basis for doing it.
So would folks like to continue to play with the map? Or I could certainly, kind of got caught up with creating a new map, so let me know.
You know, if I can just add, you know, ballot styles is not part of this process. It's just a request from staff. Certainly, it's something that can be easily dealt with when it comes to where the lines are drawn. Fitchburg is very diverse in that way of our school district, so, you know, we are used to multiple ballot styles within a ward, so it would not
it would not be something that we wouldn't be able to accommodate if it was.
I guess I'd like to hear from people's perspective on, Chad's suggestion of kind of along Lacey Road going to 3 instead, and then Quarry Hill neighborhood going to District 4, only because like Chad said, there's a lot of development happening in that area, so that's gonna look more and more disjointed, I guess, as we grow. And it is a little bit weird to me, not that it's a huge deal, that you've got these neighborhoods that are south of Lacey Road, like the Crossing, McGaw, Dahmers, and Waterford Glen, that kind of have to go through District 3 to get anywhere. So, and I don't know, and it's not really disjointed, but it's just interesting. They don't have outlets to the south at all, and at this point, Waterford Glen actually might now, but that's where growth is happening, so that's going to continue to be more fragmented if it's one or the other. But again, is it a huge deal? Is it a deal breaker? No, just interested in people's thoughts. Seems a little cleaner Chad's way, but I think either way is fine. Just curious about thoughts.
Huma.
I'm not really sure about where all that is on my map here. But when I look at option 1A as we have it right now, just by the look of it, it looks fairly clean. We look like we have straight lines through District 3. District 2 is kind of a block at the south edge, and District 1. So I guess, and then if we take out that one piece, I think it'll look like there's just like a little, it won't look as clean is my thought, but I don't know exactly about the numbers, and what Mayor Aaron was mentioning about.
Anyone else want to comment?
I guess what would help me to understand this configuration would be, the mayor mentioned that area south of Lacey. My question would be, how, if we're talking about an area south of Lacey, what's the scope or the dimensions of that area? Are we talking 5 miles, along that southern border, or how far? Because I think as I look at the map here, point it out and let me just kind of figure out, because I'm wondering if we're thinking about, development being a major player in terms of the profile of the city, that's one thing. But if we're talking about, an area, and I just had in my mind that that's a pretty barren area that we're talking about. So point it out there. How wide?
Yeah, so this is Lacey Road right here.
One there, yep.
And so you've got the Crossing right here, which is 100 or so units. And then this is McGaw Park right here. And then you've got Fahey Glen is right here and growing a little bit more down here.
That area.
This here is McGaw and Dahmers. And then you've got, this is the Addison apartment building right here. And then there's like one house here, and there's some open land that is going to be developed at some point here into houses as well. But this is McGaw Park right here. So that's a kind of a natural border as well. Right here is the 60-some acres of McGaw Park right here, actually. This is where the pickleball courts are built right now. So you've got this. This is an open field. Actually, this is Waterford Glen right here. I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. So you've kind of got, right now, 3 neighborhoods that are on the south side of Lacey Road.
All right. Now move north on Lacey. Well, east on Lacey, past. I'm looking at the intersection of Lacey and
Sahin.
not Sahin, McKee.
I'm not sure where the
So you got to go further. You got to go the other way. So, but that whole area where we have had development on Lacey, south of McKee, and going further south to where you are, was recent development, right? Houses, churches, and all that good stuff. Am I saying that right?
McKee Road?
Right.
So McKee Road is way over here.
Right. And then south of
that line.
south of McKee will bring you to Lacey at some point on the map, right?
Along which road? McKee and Lacey are on parallel.
Right.
Yep.
They run parallel.
Yep,
Yep. So there's an area between Lacey and McKee.
yep.
Boom, boom, boom. And what I'm saying is along Seminole, let's use Seminole, which connects Lacey and McKee,
Yep.
right? In that area, and this is why I wasn't following you all. When you were talking south of Lacey, you weren't talking that zone or that area, right?
No.
My question is, that area is already being developed with homes, some businesses. So moving to the area you're talking about along Lacey,
Yep.
put your finger on it. We move a little more east, and we're there. And Chad's point is, now re-express your point about that area. I forgot what you want to see happen.
There's, they've already come in and submitted plans to build out this section right here.
All right.
So there's a bunch of houses and apartments going in right here as well.
Okay.
And this piece right here. And then you hit McGaw Park is right here. So there's just a little bit here that this part here wouldn't be part of this. I think what Chad's saying is that this is getting to, I think that's,
Would we lose green space? And then you go, Chad.
no, this is, well, I mean, there's, every time there's development that you do lose some green space, but this is McGaw Park here. So this part right here would be developed. And a little bit.
So was that in, that part that's under number 14, was that, it's got like 165?
167
Yeah,
here.
167. Is that going in District 4, right? Is what you're proposing, right? And then the one with 14, right above that, that little piece, would be District 3, all the way to McGaw Park.
Right here. All the way to Sign Road.
Oh, all the
what
way to
Chad
Sign Road is
suggested.
what you're proposing?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what Chad suggested.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay.
So the line, instead of running north and south, would run east and west?
I think more along right around here, Chad, is that right? Or is that, probably, right on Long Nobel, I think you said.
Yeah, it could run along Nobel to some extent.
And I can start playing with things, but I guess what to keep in mind is I can't show districts and wards. So if someone can kind of keep track of district, I mean, I can certainly change ward boundaries, but then we'll just have to figure out, how that relates to, we'll have to do the math and how that relates to the broader district population. So yeah, if people want me to play around with boundaries, just let me know.
So, Aaron, I like that suggestion because it looks clean, like it doesn't look like someone took a thumb and, it looks like it's a straight, that would be District 3 would have a nice square
Right. And
southern boundary.
in theory, it could even be here, and then you get the
Yeah.
crossing, because the crossing is getting tied into all of this right here. And then you have McGaw Park. I mean, this little section where I live,
would be a-
full disclosure, that's where I live. I mean, that can go here or there. You got McGaw Park as a separator, and then you've got the apartments here. So, I mean, that would be another possibility, is essentially you're using McGaw Park as the,
And Aaron, I don't know if this is a census block.
oh,
I don't think we can split. So there's
Okay.
it'd either be all this
okay.
or nothing of this, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
It's all or nothing. Huh?
Right. Yeah, this whole block here, see how, basically, here, let me just throw
Okay. This whole piece.
every line you see is essentially a census block.
Uh,
So those are what we group to make wards and then districts. So, and then you'll see the population numbers, so 521 is the population here, 265. So yeah,
So Chad's, I think, suggestion was this would also be in District 3, both of these pieces. But then this, I think, to keep it pretty close, would have to be in 4 instead of 3, so south of Nobel.
okay, so, and again, if someone
And
wants,
Nobel's a pretty busy road, so that might be a good border anyway.
so if somebody does want to keep track of math, we can do this if folks are interested.
Tracy, I think if
So this would be a subtraction of 521 And that one, Aaron, too?
Yeah, I think so.
So 521 and 265 coming out of District 4.
780,
265.
so
And then what's,
786.
and then all this goes to Ward 18 or District 4, is that correct?
It's a District 4,
So that's,
the Quarry Hill.
all right, so I don't know if people want to do, I can read out numbers if folks want to,
Those are the numbers you gave me, aren't they?
yeah.
Yeah,
So if you have that.
741.
But just to be clear though, Ward, the 786 is the total reduction in District 4. That's the grand total, right? It doesn't represent the specific racial ethnic grouping that would be displaced, so to speak. Am I saying that right? We don't know what the impact would be for African Americans, Hispanics, so forth. And I look at the district totals we have already. That is one of our most, and least some folk like to use the term diverse, districts that we have in terms of racial ethnic composition. So if I look at the 786 as a total reduction, we don't know where that 786 is going to be applied across the ethnic groups, right? Yet, you'd have to do more research on that one, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah.
It could displace some or all of any one group. I doubt all, though.
So just so folks know, is this the scenario we're generally describing at this point?
Aaron, if
I'm
I
just
could
thinking
make a suggestion, that 172 that's up there on the map, if you could put that with Quarry Hill to the left,
So this goes here.
that would better align with the school district, correct?
And then this would stay the same.
Say that again?
So this one right here, you want to go along with Quarry Hill?
So with 18.
It may not matter, because I think the 167 creates the same issue with the school district
Like that?
above the Fitchburg C.
So that creates we'd have to rethink 18. That ward is too large.
This is 18 right here.
So 18 would have to lose about 700 people. So just at first blush, 18 would have to push. We'd have to.
I don't know if 17 has as much capacity.
Almost have to pick, how much does 17 have? Let me see. 17,
Oh, it has a lot of capacity, actually. Doesn't it? 'Cause it's at 663.
or no, 17 would have to pick up. Let's just try this, see what happens. 17 is too big.
And you just do half.
Yeah, so 18.
So put this back in 18 here. And have this be the dividing line. Yeah. Yep.
Let's see what that does. We're not contiguous, so.
If you can see on the screen there, the program will not let you do something you can't do. You'll get a false notification there.
If we get going too much more, are we going to jeopardize any of the alders' seats?
Yeah, I don't know where the conversation's gonna go, but, let me just see for right now.
Which ones do we have to be?
I think so. Right here.
Yeah. And that's a
It's currently okay.
And
Yep.
how about Strasburg?
She's out.
She's in 3.
Yep, she's out. she'd be in 4.
Okay,
She's up here.
so that is probably not how we want to go about it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah, she'd be. Yeah, that's 18.
So, where does she live?
West of Mike, north of Nobel, somewhere up in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be 18. That's 14. I'm getting confused here. And sometimes the colors, they don't shuffle as good as, there we go. Okay, so yeah, then District 4 kind of has this little, I guess that's, but yeah, she would be in 18.
Are there other reasons to discard this option?
I don't think so. You mean this thing?
This one right here that you're looking at?
In terms of looking like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I need to shuffle. I need to get my wards. I think we're okay. And this I was just checking. But I don't even, if someone's keeping track of math, I don't even know where we're at with the,
Right, well, it looks like you got a potential problem with some words down below.
here?
When you scroll down, you had some red.
Oh, those are just empty.
Oh.
So basically, it's 19 and up. I don't see any red flags, but, yeah, I don't know if this is an improvement over the equal thing, or if it's, if we're just kind of trading one thing for another. I'm trying to figure out why my 14 and 15 look. So where's 14? Oh, it's the same color, okay. Okay, there we go. So yeah, then you'd have a little,
So you could
Kind of
try
a-
swapping these two, swap that and that, they're about equal, would be another possibility.
Question for you, Wade, based on what you're working on, how you've got Ward 18 now condensed from, does that say 51 in that whole block area from the original mapping?
you mean
Is
the
that due to?
population?
Yeah, is that due to population?
51, I'm not seeing a.
Because
I
otherwise.
think it's warning that you're close to the 2100, because it's at 2070.
No, this is, yeah, with this current configuration, I think all the wards are legal, in terms of numbers, from what I can tell.
Okay,
I think it's just a warning that you're close to the 2100.
I guess again, I can't show you districts right now, but, District 4 would just kind of do this jog. So this would be District 4. I guess, so 14 and 13 would be District 3. And then 12 comes down to 15, over, up, back. That kind of a thing, so.
And one possibility could be this piece right here is about the same size as this. So you could flip this here and this here, I believe. It's only it's like under the 10 different, 172 versus 167.
Say that again,
so.
Aaron?
So if Quarry Hill Park 172 went into 14,
This one?
Yep.
Okay, hold on. That?
and then 167 would go into 18. Yeah, that'd be, I don't know if that still does everything good down there, but that would be a different way of cutting it.
And this one isn't nearly as contiguous either.
Yeah, if people want to bear with, unless there's any other tweaks, it'll take me a couple minutes to set up district colors, but if people want to see how the districts play out, and I can do that if you give me a couple minutes.
We can recess. How long would you like to recess for? How much time do you need?
It'll take me 2 minutes, so yeah, whatever you guys want to do, sure.
You want to do 10 minutes?
Sure, we can do 10 minutes, yeah. I'm not sure if they're, yeah. I need a motion to recess for 10 minutes.
So moved.
So, second, anyone?
Second,
Second.
Okay, very good. We'll recess for 10 minutes, and we'll reconvene at that time. But I also need Fact TV to... Yeah. All right. I need a motion to reconvene at 4:25. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Musser.
All right, second?
Second.
Okay, Susie, second. Okay, after some further vote. Thank you. All right, those in favor signify by say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Would you,
Yeah,
I'd
so what we would like to put before the committee to consider is, we've made some adjustments to District 3 and District 4. We're considering this to be option 1AB. And from a population standpoint, we would have 7,495 people in District 3, 7,495 in District 3, and District 4 would have 7,436. And the percentage of population range deviation, I'm not sure what the proper mathematical term for that is, but it's 8.4%. So I think if there are any questions or comments or concerns related to this adjustment, go ahead, Wade.
If someone could just humor me that as a calculator, if you could take 7750 minus 7328, or excuse me, 7495. So you did 7750 minus 7495? Yep, minus 7495. Okay, keep that number, or just write it down. And then 8088 8088 minus 7750. Okay, so add that 338 plus the number that you just had. And then divide 593 by 7750.
You, 0.0765.
Okay.
7%.
Okay, because I've seen a couple different ways to calculate ideal population, and that's the other way, and that's lower than what Chad gave us, so,
And that's still this configuration, right?
correct.
Now, can you explain what you did and where the lines are now relative to the,
Yeah,
now, this is a map that we don't have, or I don't have that.
right.
So Aaron's going to
And
show us
why?
what changes up.
So the modifications that were done, let me pull out option 1A so I can talk us through that. So Ward 14, we added that spot where, Aaron, your hand is right there, this by the 521. This area here was added to Ward 14. And we reduced the existing Ward 14 in the upper left-hand corner right there and added that to Ward 18 in District 4. So this other larger, that Ward 14 then would increase the size into District 3.
I have a question. What's that road on the bottom edge of, it's like right where 18 is? Is that Nobel? It is. And there is development on the north of Nobel, right? And then the south of Nobel?
There's some coming.
Some, but it's very speculative. And then the edge of 18, going north and south, where it says the C, what's that road right there? Yeah, right there.
That's Micah, yeah.
And that is are we splitting any developments or, I mean, is that just, what's kind of there? Do you know?
There are houses on that side of the road that is, I think it is a fair consideration there.
Will be
Because there is some green space currently between those houses and that section that Aaron's pointing to now. So I would share your thoughts there about,
that we might be splitting up,
we might
like
be
half of the
splitting
neighborhood
that
on this
just
side will go to one
a
side.
bit too much, yeah, right there.
Yeah.
And I assume, Wade, if you pull that section back in, that was what, 172 people, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So that's going to throw us
throw us off.
notably again. So, but I definitely agree. I share your thought process there on this particular version. Yep. I agree.
And that's the reason why you couldn't go all the way over to McGaw Park, because of that whatever that number was, 170 some number.
So in this configuration, only 2 wards are affected with this change, 14 and 18. And the change is not enough to affect the existing boundaries for census tracking, am I saying that right, Wade?
So yeah, the wards,
Compliance with,
the wards get changed, and then the district lines get changed.
yep,
So, yeah, District 4 would now kind of shoot in a little bit. And then District 3, so District 4 is the orange, District 3 is the green. So District 3 picks up some land, and then, District 4 more or less gives up some land, I guess, is probably a good way to look at it.
Wade, the only way to address that concern about the Micah Road boundary is to pull that 172 into the same area there to the left,
So
right?
making this
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
District 4?
Yeah, that would have to be part of the yellow, correct? Yeah, going basically into Ward 18, and I don't know what that does to the population of
just-
Ward 18.
Let me see here.
It got us to like a 9 point.
What was that? Yeah, the wards are still legal. It's really close, but it's still legal. But yeah, I don't know what that does for the population range.
That's where we were, I think, at 9.8%. So we were very
Yeah.
close to 10%
Yeah,
by
we were-
putting this 172 over here.
Yep. That was the issue there with that one. Well, I think, go ahead, Uma.
Just had a comment. It looks like we're in a rock and a hard place. One of those neighborhoods is going to get cut in half. Whether, you do the original proposal where you have that little jut out where the 14 number is, or if we cut it off at Micah Road, I mean, it's either one or the other, I guess. I mean, it sounds like that, that there might be development where it says 172 already. And then what we're anticipating is proposed development in the 14 area, right over there, that new area. So it's like, which one do you want to cut in half, I guess, basically?
Again,
Bill, you have a question or comment? or-
Yeah, just a
Go
one
ahead.
question, I guess. How significant are we anticipating the development will be in 14? That Are you with me?
There's, yeah, like, I think there's
There's
400 units?
450 dwelling units are proposed over
Right,
7
yes.
years through there.
450.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think to whom is, go ahead, Greg, I'm sorry.
So let's talk about this for a second in terms of the overall impact for the future. Those dwelling units we're talking about now, are they intended to be low-income dwelling units? Don't answer that yet, because I have a follow-up question number 2. Because if we're going to design the physical layout of this city to accommodate construction, development, or even businesses that bring in jobs and opportunities, I have to balance that. My personal opinion would be I got to balance that with the existing issues of poverty, housing, low-income housing, and so forth. So those units, do we have enough information now to determine what the status of those units would be? Because I have to be quite honest. We hear a lot about low-income housing that doesn't develop like it's supposed to. So talk to me about those units.
What they've told us right now and what they're proposing is that half of those units are owner occupied, and it's a lot of single family homes, but also some complex, I believe there's some duplexes and condos, and then half are apartments. They have indicated at this point that they're market rate apartments. So at this point, they're projecting those to be market rate. They're not going to be affordable or workforce or any of those types of things. At this point, they're telling us those will be market rate apartments in this area.
So from a city's perspective, we would take that proposal from at least 3 perspectives, but I'll only speak of 2. Number 1, the tax base that they would bring into this city would be substantial. We would look at that. I would look at that as a homeowner in the city to saying, how does it benefit me? The odds are very little. So the question I raise about it is, are we putting too much effort into something that doesn't seem to have what I call broad-based appeal and support and doesn't meet the unmet needs of our community? Fitchburg has a growing poverty community, if you ask me. So my question is, as I look at the possibility of aggravating the disparity between the incomes and the populations, I'm not sure this meets my standard. Don't let that hold up the vote on it, though.
So I'll offer, based on what Huma had to say, if we look at this particular option, an existing neighborhood, if we already have concerns about it potentially being split versus trying to accommodate proposed development, I think that the answer is probably relatively straightforward, but which one should be fractured, so to speak, potentially, and that would be the proposed development versus the existing development or existing neighborhood. That's how I would see it.
So the proposed one is the 14, right? The one that's current, that actually has houses, is the one where 172
Correct.
is.
There's also houses right here that don't show up. This is the crossing here. I would say the one thing I do like is that it's using Nobel and Micah as boundaries, which I think are busier roads than these, which are really neighborhood roads. And so I think there is something to be said for, this is, I think, a divided highway, this entire spot. There's some business, I believe, over here, if I'm in the right spot. And then Micah is a busier road, certainly a busier road than, I think it's Bob's Drive is over here and a few other things, which are really, it's pretty small, narrow roads. So there is something maybe to be said for using, like we were doing with Lacey Road and Fish Hatchery Road and McKee Road and a lot of other places, the roads that are a little bit heavier traffic and designed to carry a little bit more traffic. Roads that you don't want to cross, you can cross, but something to think about that way as well.
Tracy has a question?
Yep, I just wanted to add to that comment about, how we're thinking about neighborhoods. So 14 and 18 are in 2 different districts. So they have 2 different polling locations. If you look at option 1A, you've got that neighborhood that just kind of juts out. So to me, I see some voter confusion happening there.
one neighbor on one side of the street would vote at one polling location. Their neighbor across the street would vote somewhere else. So, just trying to keep that into perspective as well.
What would, go ahead.
I was just wondering, and maybe this is opening another can of worms, and I can quickly close this, but there is on option 1A, there is a road that we could just use but then again, you'd be dividing this, where you have that little fingernail out, if you could just cut, because you could make like a straight square right here if you just put this little bit that we were initially worried about into District 4. But I don't know if that's gonna.
Do you want to go up and point it on the screen? I
Sure.
wasn't quite following.
Yeah, so putting this, sorry. Yeah, so when it was just this that was over here, we were at 9.8%. If you add this, we'll probably be over 10%. Yeah.
Oh, but if you put, I think, if you put that back to the way it originally was, and then it would go like this little bump out. See this little, just this little thing. I mean, this little baby goes into the blue. We use this road, whatever that road is. Whatever this, okay, you said this is a community road or a neighborhood?
This is like more neighborhood roads,
And this is more.
Micah, and that's a little bit designed, a little bit heavier trafficked. And I think there's a park somewhere around here as well, I think, as part of this parcel. Yeah.
Wade, could I make one request on this map? And I'm working now off of option 1.
Just straight option 1?
Yes, just if you want to maybe just for the purposes of modifying it for this discussion, obviously I'm not talking about the other adjustments that were made. I'm only going to use option 1 as an example of working off of Ward 14.
Yeah.
So
you want to make adjustments to option 1?
well, I'm just as an example, I'm just using it as the example of how to point to what I'm thinking is if you keep Ward 14 as it currently looks in option 1, except move that 167 census tract or spot into District 4, so that would become yellow based on the map that's currently on the screen, and then put the 172 back in, put the Corey Hill neighborhood, which is right there, back in District 3.
So you'd like me to work off of this map to do that?
That's fine, yeah, if you don't mind.
So this one goes,
That
where?
one would go yellow.
hold on, I need to figure out Ward, so hold on.
Quarry Hill has like 700 people in it.
And so that would throw the math off pretty much?
Yeah.
We'll give that a shot or no?
So the 172 would stay, but then the 172 would stay with the Corey Hill. So you have, I don't think that's going to work, actually, as I'm trying to look at it through based on option 1. I was trying to move that boundary up to Nobel to see what that would do, but the math just isn't going to work.
Part of the problem in this area is that there's not a lot more lines for census. There's a lot of development there that hasn't been changed because of the census lines, so that's where it gets a little harder to make other choices, I think.
Yeah, when you get those big blocks when they're large like that, it's hard to make things work sometimes.
So what you're putting up right there solves a problem of anticipation development, and the cost of it is that it divides Micah neighborhood, basically, is that right? That's the principal disadvantage?
Essentially, I think right here is where it's
Yeah, that's what I mean.
dividing a little bit. Now there's developed along Micah, I believe there might be a park right around here.
So is the problem that it creates, which is dividing the neighborhood of Micah, is that okay with you all in exchange for what you've gotten out of it? Which is to anticipate development in the future.
My opinion is yes, but
Is that an oversimplification, or is that kind of what the deal is?
no, I think that's fair. I think that it's, this, most of the neighborhood is together. There's this slight sliver right here that gets divided, but I don't know where else it would go, I guess, where else it would get divided. To me, it seems like it's the best option. Like we said before, there's not perfect options for all these things, but I feel like that's a good spot to do it.
Yeah, there are certainly neighborhoods that get divided elsewhere, and, line drawing is largely arbitrary. You have to make it work out with everything else.
But we started out here trying to avoid a neighborhood divide, and all we've done is switched from one neighborhood to another, just so that we can anticipate or pull in anticipated growth.
I think that it makes more sense to have the line here than to have this little piece here it's an island, if you will.
An island for what, the anticipated
Right
growth?
here was an island with everything else around it, a different district, and where there's going to be growth.
I get it. I don't see it the same way you guys see it, so that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, these are neighborhood roads here, which I think if you're going to use a road to divide it, because this is Waterford Glen right here, and then it comes down and now connects to Fahey Fields, and to me, having this all together makes a lot of sense.
So, but Micah isn't a neighborhood road?
This is more in the heart of the neighborhood, or this is on the edge of Quarry Hill, in my opinion.
Sure,
Yes,
go ahead, Tracy.
if I can just kind of comment back to where I talked about polling locations and somebody living on one side of the street voting at one location and somebody on the other. The way the map is presented now makes more sense because the roads are divided as, by larger roads. Like you consider Lacey Road and you consider Fish Hatchery Road a larger road versus a residential street being a divider. If you look at where Ward 7 and what is it now? Is it 19 now? So you can kind of see that that's a neighborhood as well, but they're split by larger roads. They're split by Lacey and they're split by, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on, but they're split by, larger roads. It is a neighborhood, but it's still split. It's easier for somebody living across the street that way to determine a different polling location versus somebody living in a residential street across the street from each other. So, it does make a little bit more sense to have it this way versus that little thumb, as Huma mentioned, separating it out, so.
Wade, if you put the 172 back in Ward 18, what does that do to the population numbers?
Then we're at 9.8%.
That's the 9.8?
variance.
Okay, all right.
And what are we now again?
8.4.
So it seems like we have to use these blocks that they've given us and the software.
That's word.
Census blocks. Is there any way to break a census block? Because it would be really nice if you just took that micro road straight down, I don't know.
Yeah, we have no way to figure out what those numbers are, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we arbitrarily break something, we don't know how many people are. And
Yeah.
I don't think you can legally do that anyways, but, yeah.
This is the area in 10 years, it's gonna be a lot different than it is right now. And there's gonna be a lot more lines to make it a little bit easier, hopefully.
Well, and we're breaking on micro road where there's already established, it's a road, but it's not a community neighborhood road. It's
A collector road.
Yeah, it's more of a busier street.
Can anyone remind me why because yesterday with option 1, we had him go back and it was already part of a different area, and then we had to make the adjustment for 1A. So can someone remind me, because I'm like sitting here trying to remember why we had, went through that yesterday, to be back there yet again today with the thing that we had changed yesterday.
I can try to do that for you, Susie. So in option 1, those 4 streets right there by 14 were not included in Ward 14. And we look to include them in option 1A that's been presented today, which has then now created this, extension, if you will, into a surrounding area. It's surrounded by a different district entirely. That's the issue that this apparently created, and when you visualize it, it looks a little different than at least what I personally thought it might look. Wade, quick question for you. If Ward 14 went into District 4 and Ward 18 went into District 3, any thoughts on that? How's the population on
We'd
those
have
two
some
wards?
alder issues, I guess, for lack of a better term.
We have some what?
We'd have some alder issues, for lack of a
Oh,
better term.
there you go, fair enough.
2 alders would be in different
Yep,
districts.
gotcha, my bad.
And that's not necessarily the only reason to do that, but
Visually, I'm not sure it would align as well either.
I mean, you could
was just
potentially
kinda
break
curious.
up
Yeah.
18. You could create a new, again, it's at what level do we want to,
and I don't think it's
You know,
probably
make
as
it-
compact then.
It's not, I was just kind of seeing what it would look like visualized, but yeah, I get it, never mind.
And Susie, just to kind of elaborate a little bit, if I look back at my notes from yesterday, so we were trying to determine how to get that little area of that neighborhood back into 14 with also checking to see if that whole census block could also be encompassed by 14. So that's how the conversation went.
Is there any way to get this printed for us so we can see it, visually compared to the other ones versus on a screen?
it will take me probably 15 minutes to do so, but I certainly could do that.
I mean, if it would be helpful to everyone else, I don't know if that's something that we could.
Sure, we can go into another recess.
So just to be
Right.
clear, we want just a district map of option 1AB.
I guess I'm the feeling that there's probably a need for more clarity. This is just me, on 2 levels. Number one, it seems to me that when we left this meeting on yesterday, we all had, I think, a similar understanding that today we would decide on 1A, whether or not that would be the proposed option from this body, this is just Greg's summary, to the council. When we came in here today, we expanded that because of some, I think, legal issues, as well as some fundamental issues about meeting the redistricting goals and numbers and so forth. So I'm at a point saying, number one, if I recall on yesterday, we did not have the discussion about the potential impact of future development having any kind of impact. Is that you? Any kind of impact on our role here as commissioners looking at the general redistricting. This issue of the development proposal, in my mind, puts a different lens on this whole question about how we're going to treat Ward 14 versus Ward 18, District 3 versus 4. So when I say there's more clarity, what I'd like to do is this. Let's be clear on what we intended to accomplish by reviewing 1A and what that was going to mean to our role as commissioners. If we're going to expand it and include a 1AB, and then perhaps that's going to lead to a 1AC, I think we got to make a decision. How far do we go? So I'm at a point saying I would look at another model if you wanted to pull it together, but you all got to tell us if we're going to meet the timeline for the city, the county, the state, and all of that good stuff. That would be my thought.
Greg, you certainly raise a valid point that I think it's up to the commission if they want to see option 1AB or if they want to still work off a 1 and 1A. I think that's really where we're at. If you would agree with that assessment, Chair.
We do have a time issue here. And Tracy is looking at moving parks to another room. 6.
And I do have a Parks Commission commitment as well, just so folks know.
All right, so I guess I would entertain a motion.
I think
Recess, I'm talking about.
Actually, let's just discuss whether we want to focus on 1 and 1A or if we want to see 1AB.
Okay, with that stated, let me open it for discussion.
So what staff is saying to us is that you like the 1AB. Is that right?
Yes, do you want to see 1AB or you want to work off option 1 or 1 and 1A?
My own opinion, whatever you all think looks the best to meet the needs of the city for the next 10 years, we should look at, whatever that is. I don't think we're supposed to explicitly anticipate development and deciding which numbers which lines to draw, but if that makes sense, I think that's the one we ought to talk about. And I personally don't need to see it on paper.
Well, with that said, what you just said, I got the impression we should not be factoring in the development.
At least not explicitly so.
Susie, I think you were going to comment?
I mean, yeah, I think as you said, Greg, everything was thrown for a loop in it. Because, you definitely came in kind of, like looking through 1A and 1 and like, okay, this is headed in a good direction. That's better. Thank you, Wade.
Yeah, it is frustrating only because yesterday I think we all had kind of a clear consensus. We just needed a final visual in front of us. And today's discussion, we took it 2, 3 different directions down the road. So, and here we are.
Yeah, I agree. I think I had thought about 1A a lot, and I was prepared to vote on that yesterday. So today. So this is a little bit of a new option that I feel like I need. If we're gonna do it, I'd like to see the alder map, but I'd also like to see the numbers, so I can, what the population looks like, so it does look like it would need a little bit more time, to sort out if this is something that is this issue of where to draw the line, Micah versus, the proposed, neighborhood. And again, I have concerns about it being speculative as well, that we're getting into an area that's, are we really speculating on what the development's gonna be, or is it, do we have houses there, So, that's sort of my thoughts, which I basically agree with the other members of the committee.
So with that, Greg, did you want to add anything further? Okay. Yeah.
I guess there's one question I would ask of staff, though, and I'm going to ask for your honest opinion on this, and either of you can speak to it, and that's this. When we talk about this issue of the future development, now I think all of us around the table certainly understand that that's going to help the city, don't get me wrong, and we certainly appreciate that and look forward to the innovations or new construction that comes in. But the question for me comes down to this. When I think about preparing this city to deal with 10 years of voting precincts, issues that come up in their respective communities that they got to deal with, what is my primary responsibility? This is just a personal question, and I think it's this, that the community would expect that we do our best to lay out lines that are legal, that meet the needs of the city in some way. But probably as a secondary issue, I think the residents of Fitchburg want us to do our best to construct wards that are consistent, contiguous, create from those wards districts that are legally arranged or constructed, and then lastly, be able to tell them in plain language why we did this. I don't think I can tell anybody right now why we are tweaking 14 and 18 relative to what might happen down the road. So my thought is, I really want staff to lead me, this is my last comment, to lead me in doing the best I can do as a community volunteer. So I rely on you all to give me information, to give me insight, and to give me knowledge. More importantly, when I look at a map, I'm looking at it from Greg's perspective, not yours. And that's when I say, I just ain't sure that we're getting everything, but I would do this. I'm willing to look at one more map, which is 1AB, which would include the tweaks we talked about relative to staff recommendations, because I do think you all know the needs of this city at a level that I don't know.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Can I just add when we think about the mapping option here of 1AB, now in regards to polling locations, I know we haven't gotten on this topic yet, but in regards to the polling location, if you look at option 1A, so you're turning that to 15. So by moving these polling locations, which is what we're going to talk about, 15 would vote, if we wanted to keep these polling locations back within their districts, would vote at the fire station on Lacey Road. By encompassing that portion of 15 back into 14, and if we kept the polling location back into District 3, which would be the community center, that portion of the city would just have to go right across the street here to the community center to vote, would be their polling location. So I'm just putting that out there as well. Again, we're talking about putting our current polling locations back into their proper districts. And if that is the case, 15 would now vote, that section of 14, on that current map, which is 15 on option 1A, would now vote over at Lacey Road, instead of coming right there where the mayor's pointing at the community center. So that's just another, when you're talking demographics and the best interest of the city, that's just another component to think about.
And I guess to answer the question is 1A versus 1AB. To me, with what we have here on 1AB, this is the only line that really is separating out neighborhoods. I don't know if you can pull up 1A for me real quick, Wade. But here, there's houses along this border, this border, this border, and this border right now. So you have gone from just this section right here to this section and here and here and here. So there's, throughout the entire neighborhood, you have a lot of streets where there's houses on one side that are one and one side of the street that are the other. So I think that's probably the biggest improvement for me, is that you have one spot that's kind of weird and off versus a lot of spots around. That's a lot of houses or a lot of streets right there.
I thought we were talking before we tweaked 1, we were talking that little jet out. I call it a little jetty under 14. I thought we said there was only 3 streets involved with that reconfiguration. Am I saying that right?
There's 4 streets, maybe 5, 6. Okay. But there's houses on both sides of all those streets.
Right. But all those folk on those streets in those houses, right now, as we look at it, are connected to 14, but we took them away from 14 with our configuration, right?
They are now in 15 along with this here and this here is all 15
right.
now.
So let's think about those numbers, and I don't know how many households are affected or how many people, but let's say there's, let's say 85 families affected by what we just moved them away. They are giving up probably decades or at least years of camaraderie on similar issues to their neighbors and issues that I don't think the school district is going to be affected here, but the aldermanic districts will. Am I saying that right? Won't they vote for different alders? So I'm living on one, go ahead.
Just right now, just this neighborhood would be different.
Okay.
In AB, these people now are in District 4, whereas they were in District 3. They're in District 3 right as of today.
Mm-hmm.
Versus 1A, where I think there's a lot more, no, that's not true.
Yeah,
These people were in 4, I think, instead.
Okay. All right.
So I'm just going to kind of summarize, from my staff perspective on what's kind of transpired here, based on what I've heard from feedback from the committee, that it seemed as though option 1A was palatable for sure, based upon what I've heard for feedback. And I think what has happened here is definitely a demonstration on what happens when we start to adjust ward boundaries and how that ripple effect really can amplify itself many times over, and what sorts of issues it can create. I think that this, proposed, if you will, option 1AB is clearly a demonstration of what sorts of issues can result by continuing to adjust the boundaries. So I don't know if Chair Udell, you want to kind of maybe see if commission members would favor, redirecting any sort of discussion back to 1A as maybe their preferred, because I clearly, that's what I had heard is some feedback from the staff perspective.
Yes, I think from yesterday's conversation, we were prepared. Well, we had this discussion yesterday, and we prepared for 1A, walking in and approving. And I'm just not sure where the committee stands at this point, if they're still in favor of 1A or possibly 1AB. I'd like to. Did you want to speak, Craig? No. Oh, okay. So, go ahead.
I guess for me, the bottom line question for staff would be this. if this commission has been anointed to come up with a plan using staff information, knowledge, and input, insight, and all that good stuff, and it's been good. You all have been very informative and very helpful in terms of looking at the various angles to this question, would be this. If this body, this is rhetorical, if this body decides that 1A is our preferred option, what would your position, thought be? Is that a fair question or unfair?
No, that's a fair question. Fair question. Let's hear from committee members.
I guess I came prepared for 1A, but I think that the mayor and others have made a reasonable case that 1AB is superior for a couple of reasons, and so I think I would personally favor 1AB as it is in the screen right there.
Just to be clear, that would be that version.
Well, as it was, 1AB.
This is 1A. He had 1A out.
This is 1AB.
That's 1AB. So I would personally favor that option.
This is not a formal vote, it's just keep.
Yeah, I'm not
Discussion.
inclined to make a motion until other people have talked about it, unless
Yeah, no,
you want me to, and then I'll be happy to make a motion.
No. Bill,
Because I think part of this is that we have to make a decision eventually. You can change these lines repeatedly, and so at some point you have to say, well, this is pretty good, and it's acceptable, it meets the needs of the staff and the city, and is appropriate. And then, so I think that's my opinion about it.
Bill, do you have a thought one way or the other at this point?
I concur. I am not as familiar with the lay of the land in the neighborhoods as I wish I were. Certainly trust the judgment of the mayor and folks, the staff folks. I would concur.
Okay, very good. Yuma?
So let me I guess I'm just wanting to gather a little bit of information. So from the mayor and both Chad and Wade, you think 1AB, option 1AB is more preferable based upon the guidelines of compactness and the other rules that we've talked about. Is that correct?
I guess from my perspective, I wasn't prepared to make a recommendation, and I still don't think I am. In my opinion, both options are viable and would work well for the city.
I never am afraid to make my opinion known. I think that while both are viable, I agree with Wade. I do think that this does a little bit better job. I think, if I was going to pick one, I would pick this one. Both viable, but I think that this does a better job of keeping compact and minimizing the impacts on dividing neighborhoods.
I honestly believe that both option 1A and option 1AB would be acceptable. I really do. I think that both of those address the mission and the intent behind the redistricting process. I think that there's been a lot of thought that has gone into both of those options here now that you see between the one on paper and the one up there. 1AB, as I mentioned, is kind of an example of what happens when you start to go down the road of adjusting boundaries, and that could be a consideration for folks.
I have a follow-up question.
No, go
Now,
ahead.
Just so I can get it clear, 1A, option 1A had a deviation of 8%, and this 1AB, do we know the deviation? Again, what was it?
I think it's similar to that, maybe a few percent, or 8 point something, was that,
8
I
point
thought
what?
it was 9.8.
oh, was it?
Oh, it was 9?
No, that was when 172 was
No, it was
a little different.
8.4 is
Prior?
what you said earlier.
8.4 is what this
8.4?
is.
So
Okay.
very, very similar.
They're very similar,
Similar,
8
yep.
8 versus 8.4 in the deviation.
Correct.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think if this is, it does seem to be, just visually, I would like that little block to be like green, because it would look like visually like straight, but it does meet the needs, and if it sounds like this is, it's not going to divide neighborhoods, and, staff is comfortable with it, I think I'm okay with it.
Now, let me be clear. I thought option 1AB did divide that neighborhood that we were talking about. Am I wrong or right?
Both of them divide neighborhoods. So this one is dividing it just right here on Micah, and I don't think there's a lot there. The A divides along this road, this road, this road, this road, and this road. So this whole section is dividing neighborhoods. So both of them do divide it a little bit.
Right?
Do you have a preference?
Short and sweet. I'd be a proponent of option 1A.
Susie?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, all of the lines and redrawing and coloring. Honestly, I just feel like everything just kind of spun quickly. I think, again, we know that this is going to happen either way, right? Like if there's a redistricting that's happening, we know what's going to happen is things are going to change. And that's just the reality of it. So, again, we're seeing similar numbers, and as Chad mentioned, just we could keep doing this, and like it just never ending. So, I think both are viable, and it helped when Wade, he kind of colored it this way. It helped to visually see, with definitive where those lines and those things are. So I don't quite. I'll make a vote, either way. I don't feel like on the flip side, I don't feel like I'm being like coerced to pick one of these options. I feel like, it's a good process. So in that, I feel like the integrity of the process is there. I don't feel like I'm disappointing anyone one way or the other, being pulled one way or the other. I think both work. And as we've seen with the numbers, they're similar in what we're looking for.
Randy, I'd move that the committee adopt option 1AB.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? Correct.
Perhaps this isn't a question, but just clarification on the next step in the process. If we are able to come to consensus on a recommendation for tonight, it goes to the city council. They will have questions. They will have a discussion. Obviously, they don't have the same latitude that we've had given the amount of time, but ultimately it's their decision. And if there's a point of conflict, I would not personally be extremely upset if they went with 1A instead of 1AB, and let's get on with life.
Sure.
Yes.
The council can do what they want.
Right. So I just, again, I'm thinking this group of people, I think, has done an excellent job, both staff and volunteers. Let's move on.
I actually do have a question, and just the reality. You said District 4 is changing for alders. I mean, is the reality, right? Is that 3 and 4, someone's?
No. I think that was when there was this a moment of looking at 18. So that would have affected an alder. So.
Right, we're not affecting any alders in this spot?
No,
Okay.
no, we are not. Either with 1A or 1AB, it will not impact.
Actually, that in 1A, there would be one alder affected.
In 1A?
And option 1A, one of the District 3 alders would be in District 4. She moved.
That's new information. Oh.
I thought I studied this last night now. So which alder if you can say, which alder and which would be affected?
Shannon and Strassman would be, and this one it's fine. In 1A, she would move to District 4.
All right, well, the motion on the floor is, we're working with 1A, B at this point. So we now know that as new information.
Interesting.
Do you want to follow up on your question, Susie, or? No. Okay. Greg, anything further then? Okay. I have no further discussion either. Further discussion? Yes, call the vote. I hear the call to vote. All those in favor of option 1AB as shown, presented on the screen, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous? The motion carries. Okay. We have one other item on the agenda, and that is discussion possible action on polling locations, and I will turn that over to Tracy.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Udall. If you look at the original ward map, it shows where the polling locations currently are, and it shows how they are all out of the current districts except for District 1. So staff is recommending that we concentrate on just keeping our 4 polling locations as is for the spring election, and then we'll revisit possibly adding additional one and moving District 1's location in the summer prior to the November election. So what I asked this committee to do is to consider keeping District 1's polling location within the current District 1 you just voted on for 1AB, changing District 2's polling location in the prior wards to now District 4's polling location in option 1AB. Changing District 3's polling location in the 2011 mapping to District 2's polling location in option 1AB. And changing District 4's polling location in the previous ward map to District 3's polling location in option 1AB. What that does is that puts all of the polling locations back within their current districts based on your recommendation to the council of 1AB.
Tracy, can I say that a different way just to make sure that I understood it
Absolutely.
correctly? So I'm using the current aldermanic district map with the polling locations. District 1 polling location would remain District 1 polling location. And again, none of these locations physically change. It's just a matter of which district votes at the particular location. The current District 2 polling location is Fire Station Number 1 near Ward 19 on your map. That would now become a District 4 polling place, correct, Tracy? That's what you presented?
That's correct.
And then the District 3 polling location as it currently stands is at the Wyndham Garden. That would become a District 2 polling location. And then the current District 4 polling location at the community center would become the District 3 polling location. Is that correct, Tracy?
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure that I grasp that.
And you're talking about, these then would be the polling locations for the April election? And what about for the August partisan primary?
That's correct. So because of the August partisan primary, we are looking at having we would have to have a meeting 60 days prior to that election to either move a location or add a location. So that's where we would be discussing District 1's location, moving from Little John's to the Dane County building. And the reason we're waiting on that is the Dane County Public Health Building, which is our former fire station, is undergoing a remodel. The Bay area is not changing, and that is where the polling location would be located. However, there's a lot of material that's stored in there now, so we're not able to use that until their remodel is complete.
Yeah, I think optimally, it would be optimal to move that location for the partisan primary, because there's a fair amount of time between April and August. There's not a lot of time between August and November, if it could be done.
Yeah, and ultimately, that's clearly a council consideration, and that I'm guessing is likely something that will be brought up once we know that that remodel project has been completed at the county level. But ultimately, what staff is suggesting for consideration for this body is, does it make sense to propose that ward, the voting location change based upon aldermanic district that we just talked about?
So are you looking for a motion on those 4 polling places? I'll move the adoption of those polling places as recommended by Tracy.
I'll second.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and Huma has a second to that motion. Discussion.
Yes. Tracy, how did these locations get out of alignment? First question. Second question is and I'm going to personalize this one, because when I think about the polling places recently, the community center, I think, was overused for a lot of the polling services this past election. And that was because people decided to either vote by absentee and so forth. So my second question is, when I think about the utilization of these 4 places, of these 4 locations that have been in use for over a year, or 2, or maybe 3, what do we know about how much they're used? In-person voting, so to speak.
So that's a good question, and with COVID, it's kind of hard for us to gauge how next year's elections are going to pan out. We have to plan for both scenarios, an increase in absentee voting as well as in-person voting. We can't guess how people are going to cast their vote, so we have to try to accommodate both. So being that the spring elections are smaller elections that have less turnout, our polling locations current are fine, in my opinion, based on the registered voters, the population of registered voters. When we start talking about the November election and the annexation of the town of Madison coming in, that's where we need to consider a possible 5th location. For discussion, these are future discussions that we're going to have with the council, and I encourage feedback from the community when these items are presented. But my recommendation would be moving forward that based on your recommendation of option 1AB, what we could do is take Ward 12 and have them vote at possibly the new fire station over on Lacey. Maybe 10 and 15 could vote at that new fire station there. That would alleviate some of the population that votes at the community center. And then another consideration we could do is if we wanted to go to a 6th location, Wards 7 and 8, even though it would be out of their district possibility, we could have them go to the Marketplace fire station or try to utilize maybe the Black Hawk Church area. But again, we have to go through the vetting system of polling locations. When we talk about polling locations, a lot of people just think of the day, where actually a polling location will affect a building 2.5 days, set up the day before, the day of the election, and then tear down the morning after. So
that's what another reason. And we also have to think of security when it comes to these buildings. This equipment sits overnight. It needs to be in a secured lock room. We can put seals on there with the seal numbers to document all that, but still it needs to be in a secured area. So when you think of utilizing a business, you have to take that into consideration as well. So, but for our timeline based on what we're facing with the county, I asked tonight that we discuss these 4 polling locations and putting them back in their proper districts. And then prior to the November election, revisiting in June based on the remodel by the Dane County building, adding a 5th location and moving District 1's location.
But how did they get out of alignment?
These were not the original polling locations in the 2011 census. Fire Station 1 was utilized. District 2, the current District 2's polling location used to be at Fairways Apartments in the clubhouse there. So basically with population growth, you need to find a space that can accommodate all that population growth. We need to have a certain amount of poll booths based on registered voters. So you need a space that's going to accommodate not only all our equipment, but the population that's coming in.
But wouldn't the Common Council, I hate to cut you off, have decided those locations when they were put in use?
Correct.
So all I'm asking is this. When I ask a question about how did they get out of alignment, this goes fundamentally to my vote on this one, y'all. When they got out of alignment, it wasn't something the city staff did. Our leaders of this city decided to anoint those locations. Because when they approved Little John's, just a year or so ago, they went through the whole process, the review, the public hearing, the testimony, and then they voted on it, right? Mm-hmm. They voted on that, and part of that rationale was that those individuals who live right across from that location, this would increase access, voter turnout, it would be closer to home. And all I'm asking with this is this. I'm personalizing this thing now. My voting location is the fire station near which is okay. Now, I'm going to have to move from the fire station, Ward 2, and now come to the community center, where I voted in person absentee for the last year and a half anyway, so that won't be a big change. Mm-hmm. Notifying the public about these changes is a critical decision that we got to make. Now, so it's one thing to say we're going to change the locations and let everybody know, but when I go on myvote.gov and put in my address, will that information dictate and say like it does now? Your polling place is ABC. Can I depend on that to be part of this whole process? Because I can do that now. I can go on myvote.gov and it'll tell me exactly where I vote and the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Talk to me.
Yep, so again, it is up to this body to, decide if they want to recommend moving the polling locations. You certainly can keep them as is. When redistricting happened in 2011, I was not part of that process, but I was in the clerk's office. I remember getting a lot of phone calls saying, why is my polling location changed? I live right across the street, why? And our answer was, call your alders. So, that being said, when you talk about how you're currently voting at Lacey Road Fire Station, that's why maybe we need to start looking at adding additional polling locations to kind of break up some of these reporting units to go to within a district into a different polling location.
And we're definitely going to get calls about,
we will.
Ward 5, for instance, all of Ward 5 is going to be voting in District 1 now.
We're going to hear from Ward 5.
So there will be other adjustments based upon the map that's been presented and perhaps ultimately selected or approved by the City Council. So it is something that we anticipate, and it's certainly something that we will ensure that the appropriate communication and outreach is done in advance of elections so that folks know that their polling location may have changed.
Yep, and that is to answer your second part of the question with my vote. The Wisconsin Elections Commission is part of this timeline. They need to have these polling locations and these aldermanic districts and these wards finalized in time so that when we do publish our type A notice and nomination papers are being routed by December 1st, all that information has to be uploaded to the WisVote system, yep.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, place the motion to a vote. The motion to move the polling locations back into the district. Is that worded correctly? Yep. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes carry. Motion carries. Thank you.
Right.
All right, moving on with the rest of the agenda items. Item 7, announcements. I have no announcements. Anybody on the committee? Hearing none. Adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn made.
Second.
Okay. And let's put it to discussion. No discussion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. The motion carries. We are adjourned at 5:36 PM. Thank you very much, committee.
Football game, yeah.